Radio in motion program loading in 3, 2, 1. Program activated.
Attention everyone, the unpleasant noise you are about to hear coming from your radio is not a mistake.
Okay, first things first, what is your name?
This is Big Sonny playing the best of the 90s and beyond.
Are you ready for this?
Yeah. Radio in motion.
Please do not turn off your radio, but turn up the volume on your receiver as high as it can go.
All right, ready? Here we go.
Radio in motion.
All right, you're listening to Radio Motion, tonight's Midnight Drive. Thanks for joining me tonight. But now we're going to have another installment of The Ugly Truth. And I'll tell you what, folks, the ugly truth is that remakes suck. I just feel like Hollywood is running out of ideas. And for anyone that says, oh, you could do better, you know what? I dare say I could. I dare say I could, because if I were going to take something original from the past, the 80s and 90s obviously are really being raked across the coals. I dare say I would find a better way to reimagine something and make it for modern audiences. But just not even to mention, I won't even go after Disney with the obvious Star Wars and Indiana Jones. They've just wrecked all those IPs, and frankly, people are getting really weary of that. But then when it comes to just making obscure things like The Fall Guy is going to be coming out, and I with Ryan Gosling, I'll be honest, I remember that show, very early 80s show, The Fall Guy. A cool premise. It's about a stunt man in Hollywood and sort of the adventures he goes on behind the scenes. But again, I don't know what the premise for that one, it might be good or bad, but in Ghostbusters, for example, Ghostbusters, the original movie had its charm, and it was about the cast, and they're not in it. They just, have cameos now. And Ghostbusters Afterlife at least was a nice, respectful wrap-up to the original Ghostbusters franchise, so that hopefully it erased the abomination that was the 2016 Ghostbusters. Sorry if you're fans of that. If that's your Ghostbusters, you do you, boo. But I'm just saying, Afterlife, it didn't seem like a money grab. Frozen Empire, not looking good, not hearing good things. Again, it's just a movie to go see, but they're just really trying to pack it with too much, and it's kind of pointless now. And so I'm leading up to tonight talking about the remake of Roadhouse. If you're a Family Guy fan, you can picture Peter Griffin saying Roadhouse. So with this one, it's a remake of the 1989 cult classic with Patrick Swayze. First of all, again, with this one, I ask why. Why was it needed? The original, although obviously had a huge resurgence on video and found its following, and is a great, 80s flick full of 80s badassery. Yes. But did it need to be remade or reimagined? No, it didn't, first of all. So my question is, why? Again, I just think the bottles run dry. They've got nothing left, that they're going after things like Roadhouse. So anyway, in this reimagining with Jake Gyllenhaal, who, nothing against him, he's obviously had some great roles and he is a great actor, but I feel like they're getting put in some stinkers. This remake just has none of the charm, humor, personality, or again, just general 80s coolness of the original. And I'll admit, Patrick Swayze did bring a very sort of zen, I'm a fighter, I'm a bouncer, but in my life I'm very cool and very smart. I read books. There are all these scenes. I read philosophy. Again, it's cheesy, but at least it stayed on point. It stayed on point by character building and plot, and it made sense, and it was coherent. Again, I feel like modern movie makers, especially with this one, they have no understanding of the basic building blocks of making a movie. And one of those things, it's a really simple formula. It's called setup and payoff. Hey, sometimes the easiest things work. Setup and payoff. They can't even do that these days because they tend to set up plot lines and then they just leave them and go on to something else. It's like a child wandering through a room and knocking down toys and not picking one. It's just aimless and ridiculous, and a very long runtime. Let's be honest. I was thinking back to some of the movies, earlier movies. I remember Braveheart when that came out. It was quite long, but again, you didn't feel it because obviously Braveheart is awesome. Story, direction, character, cinematography, that goes without saying. But yes, movies started to get longer and longer. Terminator 2 was quite long-ish, but again, come on, Terminator 2 is 100%. I would put up any movie against Terminator 2 as Terminator 2 being the perfect setup and payoff and perfect story arc, but that's a whole other story. But long run times are not needed for something like Roadhouse. So that's the first part that I thought was a bit weird. And just bad jokes that don't land. Get some better writers. You know what I mean? And Jake Gyllenhaal, again, this is nothing against him, but he was just playing the sort of cool, easy, smirking. And I will say with Jake Gyllenhaal, sometimes I feel like, I don't know if he's on drugs or just sleepy. He's got sleepy eyes. I got sleepy eyes. Again, he's forever Donnie Darko in my mind, and Donnie Darko was the ultimate. That character, of course, I felt like he was stoned the whole movie, but it works for Donnie Darko, and you love Donnie Darko. But, and on this one, you had to change it up. You had to change it for modern audiences. In the original Patrick Swayze, his career was actually a bouncer. He was a famous bouncer. He was a bouncer at all the hot New York clubs, and that's when, the guy who owned the club, by the way, at least the club in that movie had a cool name, the Double Deuce. All right. It does mean having a poo twice, but I'm just saying it means other things. But Double Deuce is kind of a cool Roadhouse name. In this movie, the Roadhouse is called Roadhouse. Again, we're running out of ideas, folks. But at least in the original, Patrick Swayze was a bouncer. So he was sought out by the owner of the club who was having trouble with rowdy guys coming in and starting fights. I need you, Dalton. This one, he's a UFC fighter. All right, Elwood Dalton, the UFC fighter. But he's a shamed UFC fighter. By the way, there'll be minor spoilers, but I don't think it'll hurt. And by the way, it's streaming on Prime, so you can't even see it at the movies. Not that would have helped it, by the way. Premieres at home are also usually a bad sign. But yeah, and this one, he's a UFC fighter, and this time, the Roadhouse is owned by a strong, diverse female. By the way, I'm not having a go at that, but as you know, I've talked about this before. Hollywood is having this forced DEI, box ticking, and forced diversity. Nothing, of course, wrong with diversity, but it's about, are these the best people for the part? Is it the best character? Is the character well written? No, they just make, strong, diverse female written poorly. I feel bad for them because the actors and actresses, I'm sure, are amazing, but they have such a poorly written part. It's just, again, it's laziness, lazy writing. Write them an awesome part that's memorable. So this, I don't even remember her name because it's just forgettable. She seeks him out because, I guess, not because he's a bouncer, but because he's a famous ex-UFC fighter who's just hanging around clubs, making money, basically just off his name. By the way, you got to give it to Jake Gyllenhaal. He did get ripped for this. He got ripped for that movie, Southpaw, if you remember, which is actually a more interesting and cohesive movie. So anyway, she seeks him out. This is a mild spoiler, but I have to say this. Another plot point that could have actually been developed and been really important. He's so down on his luck and down. There's a scene where he drives in front of a train and tries to commit suicide. I'm just saying, that's something that could have been, at least developed a bit as a character arc, but no, it's just left and never spoken of again. Let us never speak of this again. It's just weird. It's, again, they're all over the place. So he shows up in town. It takes place in Florida. By the way, the entire movie seems like it's extremely polarized, or maybe it's just my eyes. Maybe Florida is just that bright, but everything was just so bright, overly saturated colors, every scene. Thank God there were night scenes, because the daytime scenes were like, I wanted to put sunglasses on watching the movie. I just thought that's a side note. But look, the script was all over the place. It's just clunky and inefficient. No character or plot development. Just things happening on screen because stuff has to happen. And again, with no setup and payoff, which just makes no sense. And in this one, there's a developer who wants to build a hotel, and the Roadhouse, called Roadhouse, is in prime real estate development on the beach. And And this guy's using like drug money and other nefarious stuff, trying to take the roadhouse. And Dalton has to go up against the wild biker gang, which is weird because some of the motorcycles are just like dirt bikes. It's a weird mix and match of a biker gang. And then they throw in plot lines that they start and have no point. He ends up in his first fight, by the way. This is hilarious. Shows you where the plot's all over the place. Gets in his first fight at the roadhouse. And he shows how cool he is by just slapping the guys, which is fine. But then he ends up driving them all to the hospital. I can't even say how ridiculous that is. It's funny for a second. Oh, that's funny. This is stupid. Because they could have all just, beaten the crap out of him, strangled him while he was driving. Anyway, that was ridiculous. And, so he meets strong, diverse female doctor. Again, I'm only saying that because they put someone in a role and then they don't develop the role at all. They just say, oh, yeah, she's amazing. Woman doctor, has lines and stuff. Can't remember her name. Not memorable. Sorry. And then they throw in a corrupt cop who happens to be the father of strong, diverse female doctor, which is just bizarre, because that also plot point goes nowhere, because later on he ends up becoming good. I'm just showing you how this is all over the place, this movie. The original at least had this, and this is what was missing in this one too. The original had Patrick Swayze. When he showed up, he saw how sort of dysfunctional the bouncers were at the bar, and he sort of, tried to support them, get them together, and talk them through how to be better at their job. And they would show those scenes. Again, I'm not saying the original Roadhouse was freaking Shakespeare, but I'm saying at least it had a cohesive plot and plot points that made sense. And it would show Patrick Swayze talking to the team. One of the famous things is, if they start yelling at you, be nice. If they start getting rowdy and coming at you, be nice until it's time to not be nice. And again, he's not wrong, kind of the bouncer mantra, but at least they showed that, and that was the point of what he was there for, to get them to be able to stand on their own feet, even if he's not there. None of that was here. No forming the team, and the action sequences. At least the action sequences in the first one, like many of the movies, like John Wick, they're obviously had a good choreographer and a fight scene. Not to be mean, fight scenes, that's one of the things in movies that don't need special effects. But in this movie, I feel like the camera was all over the place. Why do you have to do that? Why do you have to make a fight scene where I'm looking at an angle up his nose and I'm spinning around and coming out of his fist and over his head, and it's off-putting and it takes you out of the scene. I'd rather just have the camera locked off, shot, wide scene, two guys fight, maybe a couple cutaways, and then, you know what? The less you cut away, the more you realize how awesome the choreography was. Like John Wick, like I say, even though, John Wick 3 and 4 are starting to get a bit tired, in the original, at least the first two, you got to give it to Keanu Reeves. Here's the camera, here's the two guys going at it crazy, and full choreographed fight scene. And it is what it is. You're like, oh, I'm watching a fight. In this one, I feel like I'm watching a crazy CGI Iron Man Marvel movie fight, when it's just a fight between two dudes in a bar. So that makes no sense. Fight scenes, just keep them simple. Just have good choreography. Again, none of the characters seemed real. They're like non-entities in the movie. Like all style, no substance. I think it's interesting that they also picked an actual UFC fighter, Conor McGregor. Now, that one is just hilarious. So Conor McGregor, you won't be able to understand him because the whole time he's talking like this, and it's pretty much indecipherable. You'll have to have the captions on because you won't know what he's saying. So the thing with Conor McGregor, he is a real cage fighter. He's not an actor. And that certainly shows. I feel like the way he walked around in the movie, I don't know if he's just stuck like that. His shoulders were just up and his arms were out, and he's walking around like a caricature of some badass guy, not a real person. Walked around the whole time and very one-dimensional, delivering lines that were just weird. And again, I couldn't even figure out what he was saying. But yeah, Conor McGregor, I think maybe he was on set and nobody really wanted to tell him how bad he was doing because he would probably, beat the crap out of them. So again, all these things all over the place. In the end, the bad cop, who's the father of the doctor, who they had a love scene with, Dalton and her, forgettable. And then the doctor says, you got to get out of this town. Why did you come back? Oh, it always pulls me back. Again, just ridiculous throwaway lines. And the bad cop, father, says he kidnapped his daughter, but then he says, oh, no, it was just to lure you here. But it turns out they did kidnap the daughter. Then she's rescued, and at the end, the cop turns good again and says, oh, it's okay, I'll let you go. Ridiculous. And at the end of the movie, I have to give you this spoiler because it's ridiculous. At the end of the movie, Dalton's got a bunch of money that was taken from the main bad guy, and he ends up giving it to some guy who owned a bookstore and had a really annoying kid who was only just sprinkled in the movie, frankly, just to be annoying. So for no, point at all, he gives the money to that guy, and he's out of town on a bus. That's it. That's the entire movie. So again, I'm just saying, I would rather they just didn't remake these and just left the dignity of the original. And again, the original at least had character. It knew exactly what it was. It wasn't a super award-winning movie, but it knew its audience and it knew what it was. And frankly, I'd rather watch that one for a good time. This one was just all over the place. And again, like I say, the fight scenes really took me out of it. If the whole point of this movie is to have a fight scene, and of course, the final two, Conor McGregor, again, I can't remember his actual character's name because Conor McGregor is just Conor McGregor the whole time. Dalton and Conor McGregor have the big final fight scene, as you would expect, at the end. And again, rather than just having, all right, here we go, here it is, wide shot, couple of close-ups, they're going to go at it. It does this thing where it's moving around and it's doing that, how it has like a lock cam and it's locked on their head and the background's moving and it looks like they was done in front of a green screen. By the way, if it wasn't, that's terrible. They did a huge disservice to someone who actually did spend time on, getting these guys ripped and ready to fight, just to add a weird camera effect and make it worse. So anyway, again, as always, I never try to deter someone from seeing something. I'm just giving my honest opinion on someone who's watched so many movies over the years, and like anyone who gives a review, I'm certainly allowed to comment when I see how, they're taking a lot of original stories and just making them worse. You remember Overboard? That 80s movie was fantastic. And, they remade Overboard. You probably didn't know that because who would know? The remake was just ridiculous. So again, why pick something like Roadhouse and then also not release it in the movies? Maybe they knew it was kind of a stinker. And again, nothing against Jake Gyllenhaal. He's had some great roles, and I'm sure he tried. But this one certainly didn't support him, or any of the other actors for that matter. So anyway, that's my take on Roadhouse. If you want, check it out on Prime, just to have a good laugh. But, I don't know. You let me know what you think after you watch the remake of Roadhouse. All right, thanks for joining me with The Ugly Truth. We've got some more great music coming up tonight on our Midnight Drive special on Radio Motion. We'll be right back after a word from our sponsors.